O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
So I didn't even know where to begin. Normally I have these deep historical frameworks for the topics. We're talking about alien Jesus and New Age channelers today. So I thought, where do I even start? And I figured probably the 19th century spiritualist movement and how this sentiment and this spiritual disposition and orientation really becomes a major influence in America. And so by the mid 19th century, America and Europe were undergoing rapid industrialization, and traditional Protestant churches often seem dry or overly rational in the face of death, war, and upheaval. By the time of 1848, we get the Fox sisters. I did a long time ago. I think this is back in 2020, before I did live streams. This was like a pre-recorded video I did talking about New Age channelers and spiritualism. And I went in depth talking about some of the Fox sisters and how they really got exposed for being a hoax, but many people refused to believe it was a hoax. And so this took place in New York. Kate and Margaret Fox claimed to communicate with a spirit through a coded rapping sounds. Their story went viral through newspapers, lectures, and sparking the spiritualist movement. This was a huge phenomenon in America. Again, they were eventually found out to be frauds, but not everybody believed it to be the case. Defining features of spiritualism: mediums conducting seances to contact the dead, which is, again, we're going to see that today. Some of the guys that we're going to be seeing, not only do they claim to channel aliens, one guy claims to channel John Lennon, Mother Teresa, other pop stars, Jesus, the Buddha. And so they don't just contact the dead, they contact what they believe also to be living aliens and extraterrestrials. They often get into trance-speaking mediums, channeling the voice of spirits, emphasis on empirical proof of the afterlife, fitting the scientific ethos of the day. And then, of course, the theosophy of Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky. This was also a huge catalyst towards the end of the 19th century. And so their Theosophical Society was founded in 1875. Again, shifted focus from spirits of the dead to ascended masters. And the reason why I included this is because that's the verbiage you're going to hear over and over today, is that Jesus is an ascended master. He's an ascended master. And really, even some of these people will actually privilege Jesus to be the ascended master. And so they'll refer to him as Master Jesus, and then Lord Buddha, Lord Krishna, Lord Muhammad, and like all the religious figures. So even them, in their own weird New Age paradigm, they still have Jesus at the top. And he's considered the ultimate ascended master. But of course, he's not divine. He's an extraterrestrial. And then the entailment is that you are also part extraterrestrial, and Jesus was just here to show you what you can become. So essentially, you are Jesus, and you can become your own Jesus. Jesus is this a historical person who actualized it, but now he's over on another star system. And so it blended, Blavatsky blended Hinduism, Buddhism, Western esotericism, and science. And I'm going to come back to the science thing because I really think that when you start looking at the development of this New Age spirituality, it really kind of shifts through, at least from my reading of it, shifts through a few different phases. So anyways, impact: it created a universalist evolutionary framework. Humanity progresses under guidance from higher intelligences. This is going to be a common theme today. This framework could easily later adapt to UFO narratives. So after Roswell, a lot of this seance and these channelers begin to shift from dead, often famous people or relatives of people who are paying them to channel a relative, to extraterrestrials. And that's what I'll get to that in just a second. I think also that maybe some of the cultural crises that face people in the 20th century also catalyzed this. And so my point is, World War I, World War II, it's hard to emphasize how dramatic that was for the people who were living during that period, and the mass death and the new form of warfare at the time. And so it led to a sort of disillusionment and heightened interest in afterlife contact and alternative spiritualities. Science fiction and cultural backdrop: by the 1930s and 40s, pop magazine, early sci-fi radio, the War of Worlds in 1938, primed the Western imagination for imagination to expect cosmic visitors, which, of course, in Roswell really set off and was the first major catalyst to this. And then parapsychology and psychic research tried to reconcile spirituality with scientific method, keeping alive the idea of invisible realities accessible through mediums. Post-World War II and the UFO craze, once Roswell hit in 1947, reports of flying saucer crash created a cultural explosion of people now claiming to see, or even some having been contacted by these aliens. Cold War context, nuclear weapons, space race, fear of annihilation made extraterrestrial saviors or threats believable. Very common during the 20th century that the aliens were going to come rescue us from nuclear annihilation, right? That this was some sort of, once we develop nuclear weapons, I've seen some channelers say, well, actually, the dropping of the nuke in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this was actually a sort of signaling to the cosmic entities that humanity had reached a certain phase of intelligence. And this now was like a, dung for flies. And the aliens are going to now swoop down from the heavens, and they're going to make sure that we don't kill ourselves with nukes, because we have to sort of be stewarded into this next stage of our evolution. So the cosmos begins to replace heaven as the arena of mystery. And we're going to see that over and over again today. When typically they would refer to heaven, they're going to refer to the cosmos or the universe or a galaxy of something of that. So then contactees by the 1950s, early figures like George Adamski, George von Tassel, Truman Bethurum claimed face-to-face meetings with benevolent space brothers from Venus, Mars, and the Pleiades. These beings preached peace, warned against nuclear war, and emphasized spiritual evolution. UFO conventions and desert gatherings like the Giant Rock in California became the new revival tents. And then the fusion from spiritualism to UFO religion, the continuity is the technique of channeling remained the same. Trance states, automatic writing, direct messages, shift in content. Instead of spirits of the dead, it led to ascended masters, which then leads to aliens as spiritual brothers, space brothers. Why the shift worked? Spiritualism spoke language of the 19th century science, electricity, telegraph, invisible forces, the whole understanding of the ether and stuff like this. This was a major component to spiritualism. UFO channeling spoke the language of 20th century science, rockets, radio, waves, space travel. Each era clothed the same phenomenon, this is my argument, of mediumship and the latest technological metaphors. Right. And this is also what Father Spirit and Bailey claims in the UFO deception, is that that's what the demons are doing is they use the accoutrements of the historical context that people are in to clothe themselves so that people perceive them based on the semiotics that they're accustomed to wherever they are, or wherever they're from, and from whatever time they're in. And I think the exact same thing is happening here. Really, the 1960s is the launch of what I would consider the New Age movement. And so countercultural influences, the psychedelic movement, of course, Eastern religions, and disillusionment with traditional Christianity merged with UFO spirituality. We're going to be talking about J.Z. Knight and Ramtha, a 35,000-year-old warrior channeled in the 1970s. She claims that Ramtha is a 35,000-year-old Lemurian warrior. Lemuria and Atlantis. And that for, 63 or 65 years, we'll look into it, that he was conquering the earth during cataclysmic events, and this is who she then is contacting, and gives her the skinny on who Jesus really was. You got Barbara Marciniak and the Pleiadians, cosmic wisdom about humanity's evolution, A Course in Miracles, not UFO, but part of the channeling revival in New Age circles, narrative about Jesus, reframed as a cosmic teacher, one of many extraterrestrial ascended masters. And then you see things we've talked before about the Raelian UFO cult, openly declared Jesus an alien visitor, genetically engineering humanity. Connects back with Zecharia Sitchin and his Anunnaki theory. I'm going to bring that up in just a second. And so my last thing, just as a religious studies scholar, I'd say channeling obviously is not new. You go back to ancient Greece and various ancient groups, they all had these sort of, the Oracle at Delphi. It was common for people to believe in channeling. And like I said, because Orthodox anthropology, I'm not even against the idea that people can be sort of conduits of entities that emerge through their mind. I absolutely believe that can be the case. I just don't see channeling as something that is directly connected to God. And often, if not every time, it's just a demon that's coming through, confusing and confounding and moving people in a deleterious direction for their spiritual growth. So it's not new. It's a perennial religious technique from the ancient period to today. What changes is the symbolic framework, from spirits to ascended masters to or extraterrestrials, and then the accoutrements of like Hubble Space Telescope, cosmic aesthetics, and then of course always focused on the latest advancements in technology. So where did this Jesus was an alien idea come from? Ancient astronaut theories, 1960s, 1970s. Eric von Daniken, The Chariot of the Gods. I remember first coming across it was like the History Channel documentary with Eric von Daniken. And I was an undergraduate in college. I had just finished my math final. I had come home. I remember again, back then I told you guys I had a terrible, during college, really got into the marijuana. Do not advocate that. But I remember it was hitting my one and I watched the history documentary. I remember it was going over the Nazca lines. If you guys have watched The Chariot of the Gods, these Nazca lines are these shapes that appear in the Peruvian desert of like spiders and monkeys and birds. And the whole claim was that they can only be seen from an aerial position, and therefore these things predate the invention of the airplane by the Wright brothers. Therefore, they must be signs directed for aliens. And I remember watching that for the first. Whoa, dude! The Nazca lines? I didn't know anything about that. And so Daniken claimed biblical miracles were misinterpreted encounters with advanced extraterrestrial technology, a la what I just laid out. Jesus was sometimes framed as an advanced cosmic visitor, ascended master, whose miraculous powers were of alien science. Again, what did we just see with Billy Carson? It's the exact same thing, right? Jesus is transferring his consciousness from body to body to body. He's existed for aeons. He's still here with us. This has to do with advanced alien technology and the reincarnation of the spirit. No, dude, this is all 20th century stuff. Although mainstream scholars rejected these claims as pseudoscience, the idea gained enormous popularity in pop culture. We talked about some of the people who claim that they contacted aliens. Why do people believe such things? Again, this is my personal opinion. You can't prove why somebody believes something, but as I said, it's the semiotics as they change. I think for some people become more believable because it relates to their contemporary period. One of the commonalities is the distrust of institutions. You're going to hear people often talk about how organized religion is a man-made institution to confine you and limit your spiritual progress. So many New Age adherents distrust organized religion, especially Christianity. Casting Jesus as an alien allows them to keep him as a spiritual guide without submitting to the church or its moral teachings. This is a way of what I would say domesticating Jesus into a safe, non-threatening figure, because the true Jesus, God incarnate, if that is true, there comes a series of consequences that you're going to have to change if that is actually true, which of course we all believe. But for them, if you domesticate him, as I'm saying, is if you make him sort of an Aryan alien, Aryan meaning he's not fully divine, he's a created entity, it sort of domesticates him, but then you can say, actually, he's the highest of all ascended masters. So you're able to kind of keep him around as a spiritual guide, but yet you've taken away the actual claims he's making in the New Testament. Syncretism, universalism, to harmonize all religions into one cosmic truth. If Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, and Jesus are all ascended masters, then saying they're extraterrestrial envoys fits that scheme neatly. It flattens all distinctions. Jesus is no longer unique, but simply one of many. Of course, the Gnosticism, this pursuit for hidden knowledge, technological age, and Jesus as an alien savior fits the hope that science and technology, rather than divine grace, will ultimately rescue humanity. And this is why a lot of these people are really not fully against transhumanism, because they believe that technology is going to save us. Ascended Master theology that gets into theosophy. We're not going to focus too much on it. Again, this will be available over at the Logos Academy and on the website. New Age theology of Jesus as an alien, higher dimensional, Ascended Master framework, overlay with World War II UFO culture. Christ consciousness really gets developed after the 1960s. Here's a few examples of these UFO cults. The Unarius Academy of Science, 1950s, taught that Jesus was one in a line of great cosmic teachers from other planets. Ruth Norman claimed to channel Jesus and other masters as extraterrestrial intelligences. The Raelian movement, we mentioned that, teaches that Elohim, aliens, created humanity through genetic engineering, again, a la Zecharia Sitchin. Jesus was one of their prophets. Course in Miracles, Pleiadian Ashtar commander channelers. Many claim Jesus was connected to Galactic Federation. We're going to see that over and over today. The Anunnaki mythology. So where does this come from? In Sumerian, the Akkadian and Babylonian texts, the Anunnaki were a group of gods associated with the underworld and the divine assembly. They were not aliens in the ancient sources, but deities tied to fate, kingship, and judgment. You hear Billy Carson always talk about the Enuma Elish. Of course, again, his career is basically wrecked because it turns out the guy's an absolute fraud. And not a serious thinker. I'm going to try to refrain from too many ad hominems today. But the gold mining element. So nowhere in the Mesopotamian myth does it explicitly say humans were created to mine gold. This is the claim of Zecharia Sitchin, whose 1976 book, The 12th Planet, invented the theory that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials from the planet Nibiru. They genetically engineered humans as a slave race to mine gold. Gold was supposedly needed to repair their planet's atmosphere. And then, again, I'm not here to appeal to consensus or to appeal to authority. Those are logical fallacies. But just noting, there are no credible academics or serious scholars that support Sitchin's argument, his translations, or any of his claims. So it's really the only people that uphold it. Just like when we talked about Jesus as a mushroom, when I was on the Jay Dyer's channel, there aren't really any serious scholars. It's really just the myth that's perpetuated within the psychedelic spiritual milieu, the culture, the groups of those people that engage in that community. John Allegro's work is not substantiated by any other scholar, and other people who even wanted to tried to. They couldn't substantiate it. So Zecharia Sitchin's influence, he reframed Mesopotamian gods as aliens, just as Eric von Daniken reframed biblical stories as UFO encounters. This supplied a deep history for alien intervention and human evolution, giving UFO spirituality a mythological backbone. And then, we're going to listen to Daryl Anka today, who channels, he goes by the title Bashar, a prominent New Age channeler. In his framework, Jesus is recast as an advanced extraterrestrial who incarnated on Earth to elevate consciousness. Of course, we talked about Billy Carson. He's just popularizing Sitchin's work for a new generation. He's really not this original scholar he claims to be. It's really just a repackaging of von Daniken and Sitchin, and just trying to, put that in conversation with contemporary cultural events. And so Orthodox refutation, again, this is about the end of my document here, is Christ is the uncreated Logos. In Orthodoxy, Jesus is not just a being among others, even advanced beings. He is the Logos of God, begotten and not made, the eternal Word. Any alien, no matter how advanced, is still a creature, so that theologically just doesn't correlate. Incarnation in human flesh, resurrection versus technology. We believe that it's a grace-filled mystery. This isn't some sort of alien technology regarding resurrection and the transference of consciousness, as we're going to hear. And so it's like, as Orthodox, how do you even approach unprovable claims? And here's what I thought of, sort of historical grounding, at least of the opponents and the proponents of the alien savior theory. Our opponents as Orthodox Christians, they really have no historical grounding for anything they're claiming. It's just a narrative. It's just it's a narrative reframing of history, but there's very, very, very little actual historical or archaeological evidence to support any of it. we actually have historical and archaeological evidence and theological and traditional evidence to support our claim as the Orthodox Church. So alien reinterpretations are anachronistic, projecting 20th century sci-fi categories onto first century text. Philosophical coherence. So as an Orthodox, how do you debate these people? I think one of the only things you could appeal to is a sort of philosophical coherence of a paradigm. Not that these people are interested in that. They're clearly not. But claims must be internally coherent. If Jesus is an alien, he is a creature, cannot be worshipped without idolatry, anyways. Theological integrity, criteria of truth and orthodoxy. We have apostolic witnesses, scripture and tradition, consensus of the fathers, lived experiences of the saints. By these measures, the alien Jesus thesis is a novelty without roots. Orthodoxy measures new claims against the mind of the church and finds them empty. So how do you prove an unprovable myth? Their argument today about the alien Jesus is historically groundless. As I said, there's no ancient text that calls Jesus an alien. The alien Jesus narrative only appears in the 20th century. Philosophically incoherent. If he's an alien, he's a creature, but if he's a creature, he cannot be eternal logos, worship from the beginning. Not that they would probably concede that and say, well, yeah, he's an alien. But I just point that out. Theologically insufficient. And psychologically revealing. People accept such myths because they are drawn to hidden knowledge, to reinterpretations that bypass the authority of the church and become UFO, aliens, and modern archetypes of transcendence. Thus, it reveals more about modern anxieties than about Christ. And so my point here is that basically we see this approach toward hidden knowledge as a remnant of Gnosticism, him not being God, remnant of the Arian heresy. And that the alien Jesus myth is just a modern recycling of these old heresies dressed up in scientific sci-fi imagery. So that's a little bit of my document today. Again, if you guys want that full thing, go over to Logos Academy and you can get access to all the study guides regarding all the different topics that I've done. We're going to move over to Galactic Anthropology. And what we're looking at here is a woman called Elena Dannon. And she claims that Jesus is from the planet Huvid, an intergalactic civilization called Huva, although she does say that some people say he's from Sirius, and they're not wrong, either because Jesus was an Anunnaki hybrid, so his biology is linked to Sirius, and she says, make it make sense. Ironically, she has a page on her site debunking other channeled messages, of course, but she claims all her channeled messages are telling the truth. And when you click the links that she sent me, this is the first one that comes up on Jesus, Jehovah, the Huva, and the Theuba. And so how about Jesus? Check this out.
Jesus, do you know where he came from?
Yes, it's an intergalactic civilization. They are called Huvid or Huva. And I don't remember quite well the name of the galaxy. It's just numbers,
Different galaxy. He came from
different galaxy. Yes, he was part of the Cedars.
Okay. So
he's from Huvid. They're Huva. And then this, I don't know if she's Native American or East Asian. Oh.
So he came as a human body, but he used to be the Cedars. I mean, he is the Cedars, but he came into a physical body in order to.
Yes. And there are some theories or people saying, no, he was from Sirius. But they are not wrong either, because Jesus was an Anunnaki hybrid. So, and this branch of Anunnaki came from Sirius B. So his biology is linked with Sirius B, and that biology, and that's not wrong. It's right that way. Also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The fact that she names the Huva or the Huvid is interesting in various ways. In an earlier article, I reflected on the links between the Huva, as they are mentioned in the intergalactic cedar race in Elena's third disclosure book, and the Huva as they are described in The Only Planet Choice by Phyllis Schelmer. I also added the Hebrew people to this mix. Here's Dan Winter, and he's gonna pop up. We have our own links on him. Some of you guys may be familiar with him. He does the whole spiritual physics stuff. But here's a little video.
Specifically, if you look at a very famous French book, it's called Thiuba, and it's about an abduction to the planet Thiuba, which we later hypothesized is Thuban in Draco, which they say is one root of the word Yehovah, Yahweh, Thiuba, and it basically old Draco, and that at that time the Draco were androgynous.
Wonderful. The Thiuba. So Dan Winters introduces the Thiuba from the French contactee Michel Desmarquet. We have written quite a few articles. Okay, here we come to Jesus. Well, having said all this, we might listen to what the Thiuba have said about the soul of Jesus. They claim that Jesus' soul originated from their world. The Thiuba, which might just be the same place that what Elena describes as the Huva, what also adds credence to this, a lot of credence, is that Michel Desmarquet talks about in an intergalactic base in his book. Oh my gosh, this is really credible because somebody else who claims they're contacted by aliens talks about the intergalactic base in their book. The close-up view on this panel was replaced by a wide-angle shot, allowing us a general view of the command room of the intergalactic base we have seen earlier. Gosh. Elena says that Jesus would have half Anunnaki genes from the Anunnaki branch that belonged to Sirius B. In webinar 2, Elena seems to imply that the other father, half of the genes of Jesus, were the result of in vitro fertilization, and probably with additional Huva genomes in order to be able to better house the Huva soul from Jesus. The Thiuba have a different take on this. They say that Jesus' embryo was full-blood Thiuba, Huvid embryo, which was placed in Mary's womb, Mary being just a surrogate mother. And this is what is so mind-blowing, is they think this stuff is way more credible than if you just actually believe the literal interpretation of Scripture. Yeah, Charles says their brain got hoovered. Yeah. I'm telling you guys, we're going to see tons of this stuff. Shout out to Melanie. I didn't even know this woman was. So without Melanie sending me leaks, it would have been hard for me to track this stuff down. Yeah. Mary had IVF. So this is Dan Winters writing. And so the question was, did Christ come to be our Savior? And if so, do we follow him or his teachings as Krishna's, Buddha's, and Christ's teachings all calibrate at 1,000? Talking about like this Hertz energy and these frequencies and stuff. Here's Dan Winters. Even though millions of confused books obfuscate the truth, in fact, only a small amount of clear study would prove there is no historical existence of the person you call Jesus or the Christ, which again isn't even the common sentiment amongst atheistic scholars, right? So the vast majority of atheist secular scholars believe that Jesus was a historical person. Right? They don't recognize his divinity. They're not Christian. They don't believe in miracles, but the vast majority of scholarship believes he's a historical person. So Winter is already out on that mark. Out of this myth is the angry result of the Roman government's decision to create a state religion by merging the most politically in favor religious myths of their day. This was done mostly to reduce the expense of babysitting religion wars. This is why it was called Roman Catholic. You see it? Roman Catholic. They combined some stories about a Jewish rebel and some Egyptian personality worship around the remnant of the Akhenaten Tut story. Lawrence Gardner has adopted this story from the scholarship in Out of Egypt, House of the Messiah, Copper Scrolls, and to some extent Bible fraud. Okay, all non-credible, alternative historical, alternative biblical narratives. The real core of the myth reduces to the intent behind the Eneki genetic, whom you later called Ra, and as in Abraham, father of all religions. Well, he's not the father of all religions. Eneki's genetic design radiated from the Paltau Ophinum, pot, intent to provoke a humanoid remnant with enough psychokinesis to survive the Orion machine cult war. This is more believable. This is supposed to be more believable than just believing the Bible. Oh my gosh. Okay. Return to Enki as such, the person you dump so much personality worship upon would definitely not welcome that parasitic approach. As for the high genetic charge you associate with the Christ myth that radiates largely from the blood behind Tut, Moses, Akhenaten, that is real. But that is rooted mostly in the Syrian genes behind the top Enki family, who did and do love the family they helped create here. Enki came here because his family had a nasty genetic problem. What? Bliss ignition and gravity makes us dying in their genes. This fallen condition was named Nephilim. He was mostly a pawn of the galaxy wars of his day and rather a klutz of a genetic engineer. The primary interest is the resultant hominoid family you call Adam and Eve, which he sired was one, the vital force of the Cro-Magnon egg he raped to put in his half-sister Draco, and two, he used his own sperm. So from that perspective, the Orion Borg encoder Enlil and Bible code Aster hierarchy cult, ours, became an illegal gene pool, inviting change instead of a stasis they define as weak, something they were determined to kill. Terminator has some truth. Gene pools bred for harvest are not invented to inhabit and steer their local stars. Like, what? What? Good Lord. And so she said that Dan Winter says Jesus was a Syrian prince and an androgynous Draco, but also that Enki is Jesus. His stuff is off the charts loon material. Yeah, I totally agree. So check this out. This is the truth. So we're going to play a couple videos. This is a guy named Daryl Anka. I've talked about him before in some of these New Age channeler streams, and he claims to channel an alien called Bashar, and says that Jesus did not intend to create followers. Funnily enough, Bashar did not realize Jesus was quoting Psalm 22, lots of rubbish about the Anunnaki. Jesus is a hybrid ascended master, blah, blah, blah. There's quite a bit of on Facebook about Bashar and his opinions on Jesus. So we're just going to watch these two videos.
From the New Age, and, found Jesus and everything. And now they cast everything aside that is not Jesus. So everything is...
And they don't actually understand Jesus. Because there have been many misinterpretations and misrepresentations and misunderstandings about what Jesus actually said and what he was all about, because a lot of the dialogue that came from him and others around him have been altered for the purposes of political power and certain kinds of gain, and therefore you don't really have an absolutely thoroughly accurate representation of what was really said at the time. Plus, in not understanding Jesus in the full capacity of his expression, then many people who purport to understand him or purport to believe in him actually have no understanding of the fact that he was presenting both a male and a female aspect in the Mary of the Magdalene. This is a couple. This is a male and female representation in balance, and many of the things that were actually talked about are extremely metaphysical and not exactly what the idea of the Christian belief system purports to be true.
Got it. So more...
So definitely believe the guy who claims to be channeling an alien. I mean, it's just so unbelievable.
This is hard for me to ask, but more, okay, so more like how you've said the Magdalena things and more of the Essenian stuff and the Rosicrucian stuff is a little more core.
Even there are misinterpretations in those. It is more the pure idea of the understanding of the balance between male and female in the expression of Yeshua and Maria, or Mir.
So Jesus was here to actually unite male and female energies and was symbolized by his romantic love affair with Mary.
The Magdalene.
So more just the simplicity of harmony between the sexes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the idea of the understanding of both sides' connection in balance to all that is, and the expressions thereof, many of which are very familiar now to those who have listened to metaphysical concepts in your modern age.
So right. And so here's the video that she sent me.
Some of the extraterrestrials that Moses interacted with were the idea of the Anunnaki attempting to correct what the original group of Anunnaki caused by the creation of Homo sapiens on your planet, and attempted to guide and preserve certain genetic lines that would allow for the eventual evolution of the Earth into the sixth hybrid race. Some were not Anunnaki. We have been asked this question before, and we are not allowed to discuss that race. The idea of the light is simply the light from a craft.
That the topic of the Anunnaki we've discussed is an out-of-bounds question, because they have made a treaty in the Galactic Federation that we are not to talk about that race. Jesus, as part of the Anunnaki, came to unite male and female energies, was a member of the Anunnaki race, but we cannot go into details about that. We can only say that he is one of the Ascended Masters of the Anunnakis, who are members of the Galactic Federation, who came here to elevate human consciousness.
The energy from a craft landing on the mountain that interacted with Moses. The idea of the burning bush, again, a holographic projection of energy that was interpreted as fire. Similar in many ways to what people on your planet have been experiencing today as orbs of energy, orbs of light.
It's Sam Shamoon theology. It's the orbs of light. This is Sam Shamoon theology. These are the angels. This is the orbs of light are alien messengers coming to contact you to signify you are on the right spiritual path towards ascension. And you truly are a son of the Galactic Federation.
So interpreted in an old-fashioned way, because that was all that was understood. Energy at the time was not understood in the way you understand it now scientifically. Therefore, it was perceived as a fire, when all it was basically an orb of glowing energy to represent a communication modality, a probe.
Literally what I said. The orb is an alien communication modality so that you may know where north is in regards to your spiritual ascension.
That would allow for communication to occur between the extraterrestrials and the individual experiencing the idea of the burning of the orb. It used the idea of a bush kind of similarly to the idea of anchoring it to a spot, like an antenna.
So you've mentioned before that if we...
I'm not even going to go into what I was going to say about the bush. I'm not even going to go there about speaking to a bush, and maybe one very different from Moses. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be a bigger man, and I'm not going to stoop down to that level.
If we were to time travel back in time, because our frequency is much higher now, that we would glow if we encountered the historical beings.
You would appear to them to glow, yes.
Yeah. So did Jesus appear to glow also?
From time to time, yes. This is what is usually referred to as the transfiguration in your religious doctrines. The idea that he was perceived as being surrounded by a glowing aura.
And this person is saying, I'm left with the distinct impression that virtually all angels described as light beings that came from the sky and the stars in most religious doctrines are actually highly advanced aliens from other civilizations that have visited Earth. Is that
not
correct?
all, but most. Extra dimensionals, extraterrestrials, beings of higher frequency, but sometimes spirit beings as well that can manifest themselves to appear as if they are physical when they may not.
So it's a docetic understanding. So their human appearance, it's just an appearance. That's not really who they are. Shout out to Brady Harvey. Thank you so much, brother, for the $5 super chat. Says, I don't know, DPH. All these Gnostitards say Yeshua. It's pretty convincing. Yeah. It's almost just an immediate red flag if you're talking to anybody about Christian theology and they just refuse to say Jesus and say Yeshua, because it just comes with like this condescending, pretentious undertone that I don't refer to Jesus as Jesus. That's English. I refer to him as Yeshua because I have gnosis. Yeah. Have you even studied the Gnostic Nag Hammadi corpus? I don't think you have. Have you read the Gospel of Mary? I don't think you have. It's so pretentious. Like it's just a different language, guys. You can say Jesus. It's okay. Oh my gosh. I know the same that says overstand and understand. I know it's Savan Bomer. Are you guys familiar? What is what's the name? I need to do a debunking of Savan Bomer and his group. I forget what they called their university or their group, but he always says understanding. It's understanding. You guys heard of Savan Bomer? Yeah. Bro, do you even have Christ consciousness? Because if you did, you would know that you say Yeshua so that everybody knows you're a pretentious ass. Okay? So if you don't know that, then I don't want to hear it.
So it's a variety of things. Yes.
Okay. And this person's asking about ancient Greece. I'm currently being taught in universities that Hera was oppressed in relation to Zeus and that women were not respected in ancient Greece or any other parts of the world. My intuition tells me that's wrong, especially since there were like temples to Hera and things like that. So did the ancient Greeks truly view Hera as a goddess?
Yes. The idea again represents the struggle that humanity has gone through with regard to the idea of the balancing of the male and female energies. Now, yes, you are correct. This is not true at the time for the entire planet.
We're not going to go through this whole video. I am going to skip forward, though, to the section on unity through archetypes and divine perspective. Let's hear it. Let's hear it from Daryl Anka, who's channeling Bashar.
Good day. This transmission is called the Archetypes of God. And what we mean by this is you have many names for the idea of what you call God. God, Goddess, Allah, Jehovah, Tetragrammaton, the Light, the I am that I am, Wakantanka. It doesn't really matter what it is that you use as a name to identify the concept of all that is. But it is important to understand that all of these names represent different archetypal expressions, different angles and different perspectives of the same one thing, so that all of your apparently separate religions, no matter how they present themselves, no matter how many symbols they use to represent the idea of God or aspects of God, are all talking about the same thing, but from different points of view. that serve the uniqueness of the culture in which they live. But the idea is to understand that it all comes from source, it all is within the light. And the light, source, all that is, expresses itself in all these ways in order for there to be sufficient symbols for all the different cultural experiences on your planet, all the different individual experiences, even within a culture on your planet. As we have said, the misinterpretation of what you have called, in one particular Judeo-Christian culture, the Ten Commandments, are really the messages that were delivered in a very different way that have been misunderstood, misquoted, because of the level of understanding that existed in the culture at the time. And the so-called first commandment, I am the Lord your God, thou shalt not have false gods before me, really was a mistranslation and a misunderstanding of the idea that really would be more accurately represented as, I am that I am, and all reflections are me, therefore none can be false before me, for I am all that is.
And this is why that directly contradicts the idea that the God of the old Bible, first commandment, is that you shall worship thy God and not idols. But from another perspective, the idea, because everything I'm saying is just an idea that I've created through my fake channeling of Bashar, is that you can actually worship various idols because he is, I am that I am, and every idol is really just the same God. These people are so ridiculous.
So the idea is to understand.
There's another idea. How many times does he say idea? He wears a Hawaiian shirt. He wears a Hawaiian shirt in every single one of them. I've never seen a video of this guy not in a Hawaiian shirt. Mr. Fista says, come on, at least this guy looks exactly like you expect him to. It's true. That is true. Very, very true.
That all that is presents itself in a variety of archetypal forms. The father energy, the mother energy, God, goddess, all that is, as you sometimes say. And these serve various functions and translate into your reality as, shall we say, smaller representations of all that is that are specifically designed to deal with specific cultural differences, specific ideology.
I just can't. Okay. We're done with Daryl Anka. Okay. So here she is talking about Jesus, telling this woman's like, I don't know, I'm just really spiritual and I just feel so drawn to Jesus. And I just want to know, like, how does that relate to the vortex? And here's Abraham Hicks.
And if you're in the vortex, then there would be nothing beyond that. Please tell me what happened with Jesus, because there is such controversy. He was in the vortex and he was done and he never came back. And I just have so many questions. I feel so connected to Jesus in a way that I can't explain, that my heart sings, and I don't know what that's about.
Well, we have some questions for you about that. Do you believe that, first of all, does it resonate with you that you are an eternal being?
Yes.
And do you think that's true of Jesus?
Absolutely.
And does it make sense to you that even though you're here in this physical body, or even though he was here in a physical body, does it make sense to you that the larger part of you is non-physical?
Yes.
Does it make sense to you that while you are in your physical body, you have access to all of that?
Yes.
Does it make sense to you that while you're in your physical body, you, by virtue of what you're thinking, could be in or out of the vortex? It could go either way, and that you have control over it. Does it make sense to you from the scanty part of the story of his life that you have actually been able to hear? Does it make sense to you that he was not so different from you in the sense that there were things that he focused upon that took him into the vortex and allowed the clarity. In other words, when you sat before him dripping your illness and he held you as his object of attention, he did not allow himself to see your illness. Instead, he knew the wholeness of you because he was in the vortex where he could see all that you had become. And he trained himself not to be distracted. Do you think that he was always that way?
So you see the eisegesis I was talking about in my opening monologue. Eisegesis is you're putting your presuppositions onto something so that you can reframe it, reform it, and draw new meaning out of it. She's interpreting the entire gospel of Jesus from her theory about this vortex and manifestation. And that's that then now encompasses her entire articulation of Christ.
Why? Do you hear the story of how he left his village and went somewhere they knew not where and was gone for some period of time? Do you know where he was?
No, where was he?
He was off learning how to get into the vortex. He was off learning how to meditate. He was learning to control his mind. He was distracted from the trauma of his village, off to himself, turning into the vibration of the wholeness of who he is, so that from inside the vortex he could see the wholeness. That's why when he returned, while he did not always stay in the vortex, once he integrated back into his society, he had trained himself so that he could predominantly be in the vortex. Do you think he was in the vortex the day they nailed him up?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, what's your guess?
No.
Is that not a powerful message that he would bring? In other words, if you could hear...
Don't you see that Jesus was crucified because he was trying to show you like what happens when you don't align your thoughts with your emotions and really elevate your energy? Don't you see that was the educational message he was trying to show you? If you're not aligned, the Roman Empire and the Jews are going to kill you. Duh.
Hear him, what he was saying is, I'm not different from you. The kingdom of heaven that you are all looking for over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, isn't over there, isn't over there, it's over here. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It is a vibrational place. You tune into it. Everyone is an extension of it, you see. When you wait for him to come back, do you understand that that's what is flowing to all of you? In other words, it's physical humans who stand outside the vortex and write this stuff always get it wrong.
I wish.
Very helpful. Did he resurrect, like come up back from the dead like the Bible says, or did he pull a...
Take my money. I just want to be aligned with the vortex. I just want to see the second coming of Christ when I'm fully immersed in the vortex and every single thing I want just comes to me. Take my money. Please just take my money. Thomas said this is why Paul commanded women to be silent and listen. So we all just start vibrating. That's the meaning of life. Well, duh. How else are you going to get the things that you want? Don't you know that Jesus, he lived in the vortex. He is the vortex.
Fast one and go down the aisle or down the alleyway and somebody took his place. I'm just really curious.
He reemerged into non-physical, as each and every one of you will. He became source energy, as each and every one of you are. Reemerges back into physical experience, as each and every one of you are doing. In other words, he was not an anomaly. He was not an anomaly, and yet all the things that you want to believe about him are accurate. In other words, but they are accurate of you as well.
Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God. Did you hear Abraham? She just told that lady that Jesus is everything that she is. Oh my gosh. It's so spiritual. Wow. Austin DeTulio throws in 10. Thank you so much, brother. He says 31 minutes left to reach the goal. Guys, help me out. If you appreciate some of my content, thank you so much, Austin, for all that you do. Help me reach my goal today, and I will annihilate Jim Bob in the competition of who can yell goal longer. We are going to we need to make that a competition and see who can actually do it. I'm saying I can beat Jim Bob. But thank you so much, Austin DeTulio, for the support, brother. Oh, Abraham Hicks, that is so incredible. I'm going to cry. Jesus is in the vortex. Oh, let's hear about the distortions about Jesus.
On the floor, but if Esther had been in the room with them, she would have had the experience of levitation with them. In other words, you have to be in the vortex. You have to be up to speed with who you really are, you see. And so what Jesus's primary message is that he was the extension of source energy. It was translated in many different ways. It's translated that he was the Son of God, eventually the only Son of God. In other words, it got more and more distorted.
He eventually what? That's right there in the scripture. What are you talking about eventually? See, it's like the Roman Empire when they created Christianity to appease the masses 300 years after Christ. And there was like no Christians before that. The Roman Empire just created it. And he's just been distorted. And then they said he's the only Son of God. Well, that's not true, because you and I, we are daughters and sons of God. We are in the vortex. We're going to be in the vortex.
As time goes by. But there was nothing that he was saying then or would say to you now that is different than what you are hearing here. And you can tell by the resonance that you feel within you when you find a piece of something that the source within you agrees with. We are not wanting to go back into history and rewrite any books. It's not necessary.
That's literally what she's doing. Yeah, you don't write a book. You just pretend to channel an alien and talk about the vortex and source energy. You are rewriting history. As we saw with Dan Winters, he claims that the Roman Catholic Church invented Christianity 300 years after Christ. These people are idiots. These people are literal morons. You know, God bless them. I hope they come to Christ. I hope they begin to, wise up. But if there's any takeaway from today's stream, it's that, wow, people can be really, really dumb. Thomas throws in $2, says, hit the goal, hit the goal. Thank you so much, Thomas. Truly appreciate your support, brother. God bless you.
We want you to do is to find the feeling place of where you are, acknowledge that there is a larger part of you that you have expanded to, and then feel yourself into resonance with who you are. We want to empower you to your own guidance system. And when you do, while you will continue to love and appreciate this one that you know as Jesus, you won't hold him on a pedestal that you have not yet achieved. You will see him as a partner in creation. You will feel the equality of that which you all are. You will feel the fullness. You will never really know who.
See, you won't have any suffering or any problems if you're in the vortex. So if you're struggling because you've been diagnosed with a terminal disease that really just came from all the chemicals that are surrounded us in our water and our food, well, that's because you're not in the vortex, sister. Get your energy up, sister. Get your energy up, and you won't have that stuff. You are not in the vortex right now, and I'm disgusted. I can't even look at you because you don't even reflect the image of Christ, because you're not in the vortex. Get in the vortex, sister. Jeez Louise.
I found Abraham's teachings, and I grew up in a Christian background where my dad is an evangelist. And so the subject of Jesus is very confusing to me now that I know what I know.
Why? Is a receiver of source energy?
That is what I understand now. Yeah. What I was taught is that Jesus was literally the Son of God, came to earth, lived a perfect life as our substitute, died in our place so that we can have eternal life if we perceive him to be our way.
All right, take it one step at a time and let's clarify it. He was what?
The Son of God, which I believe we are as well.
An extension of source energy. Yes, that's another way. Yeah. Did you realize how many times it was translated? It's a wonder any of it makes any sense.
Yes.
And what else? What next?
That he came here and his intention or his mission from heaven or from source was to, because we are all depraved from the moment we are born into this sinful nature world, we need saving. That Christianity. It's not me. I've been trying to figure it out my whole life.
But if you just a little bit give them the benefit of the doubt, because within that statement is also a scenario that goes something like, realized that there was not as much joy and love as is possible, not so different from what we're talking about here today, that life can be better, that there are laws of the universe that once understood, you can, in other words, it's not so different. And what else?
I guess where I would lead to is...
But we want to hear the rest of the, because you gave quite a scenario and we want to work the bugs out of it just a little bit.
The thought process which I had been adopting was that this is who Jesus was and that we were all sinners needing saving.
Or that through meditation, and you know that's what happened, he found relief, like our friend earlier when he got hit on the head, and wanted others to find the same relief. That's the saving part.
That's not the confusing part to me.
And then?
The part that's confusing to me is that he had to die in our place and that somehow he was dead for 3 days, was raised from the dead and was living. People saw him, and then he ascended back into heaven.
Well, he reemerged into non-physical, and since life is eternal and there is no death.
What were the reality that he did come back from the dead? Did that happen? Was there a human being named Jesus that was here on planet Earth that was so in alignment that defied the laws of physics?
If he had been so in alignment that it defied the laws of physics, they wouldn't have put him on the cross.
Absolutely.
But he...
See, if he actually would listen to me, then he would have stayed in the vortex and he would have never been crucified. The problem is he got out of the vortex.
It was not different than all of that you've said. He was not trying to live your life for you. He reemerged into non-physical, showing you the way. We don't want you to go back 20 years.
I'm only 30.
You can imagine how we feel about that whole scenario. But the reason that we wanted to chew with you about it just a little bit is because what Esther has noticed, because Esther did not accept a religious basis or background, although it was swirling around her. What she has noticed...
Esther is the woman who, quote unquote, is channeling Abraham Hicks right now. If you guys don't know, her name is Esther. Remember when we looked at the Wikipedia page? Her name is Esther Hicks, and Abraham, the entity that she's channeling, chose her because she didn't have all the baggage of religious doctrines in her mind.
Noticed, as she is now listening through the ears of Abraham, she can find pieces in all religions that she understands that make perfect sense.
I see all the puzzles coming together when I look through the eyes of Source and these teachings back at what I know to be the distorted truth.
And we think that the thing that is most discordant to you is the idea that someone else was doing something for you because you either couldn't do it for yourself or shouldn't do it for yourself. That's the part that rubs you in the wrongest way. And the reason is because there was nothing even close to that was happening. But man's distortion, here's the way that we like to, in a sort of fun and easy nutshell, explain so much of that conversation. You join the group, the human race, to have success. And the success that you're looking for is joy. And so in talking with the people who surround you, you, either through asking questions or them through assuming your questions, it is said to most of you in some form that if you want to join our group, meaning their religion, then you must keep these rules. You must do these things, and you must not do those things. Because it sounds like a good idea, because you want to be part of a joyful group and you want to do what's good, then you start living your life within the confines of the group, and then you begin to notice that some of them are thriving who you know are breaking the rules.
Okay, I can't listen to much more. We're going to wind down the stream with a remote viewer who claims that they actually know what happened during the crucifixion. So again, shout out to Melanie. Major thank you for sponsoring today's stream. Your document was absolutely fantastic. There's so many more channelers that she listed. James Padgett, Jay-Z Knight, Theosophy books, channeled books that she brought up, all types of stuff. But the one thing I want to leave with you is a remote viewer who claims that he can remote view and know exactly what happened at the crucifixion. Oh, crap. I forget where all the...
Seth, now only as a matter of historical record to account for why I thought of starting this project in the first place. My own exposure to Seth was a bit late in the game, especially given my interest in non-local consciousness and remote viewing. Second type of feedback, it's called post-feedback recording. This is useful to compare with the written record of the session, which of course was obtained when Daz was still blind to the target identity. Here now is a video recording of Daz describing his data for his first session, the moments leading up to the end of Jesus's physical existence.
He felt very busy. He felt like he was doing a lot of communicating. He felt very connected to other people. I felt that this connection was over vast distances. It felt like he was giving a two-way communication over this vast distance. He's also a leader, has great leadership qualities, and people recognize this and flock to him because of it. He's well liked, and I felt that he was leading a team in an endeavor during this target. And he was also a good organizer of people. He and the people around him were waiting for something. They were expectant and expectantly waiting for a situation to arise or occur. And I felt that there was a real sense of emotional pressure around this. I also...
I remote viewed back to the crucifixion, and I'll tell you what I felt. I just felt like there was tons of emotion. And I just felt like while they were whipping Christ and beating him, and the crowd was cheering, I thought, wow, there's a lot of emotional pressure. Thanks for the insight, guy. Never thought about that. That really is onto something there. Shout out to Thomas, says, hit the goal, hit the goal. Pablo Winscobar throws in 2, says, great fruitcake stream, doctor. Very entertaining. Thank you very much. Mr. Fiesta says, hit the goal for Vortex Jesus. And Mama Bear Blue says, thanks, Patrick. God bless you and Jenny. Amy, Rob. Oh, shout out to Amy. God bless you and Rob. Thank you so much for the generous support. So glad you're here. God bless you. We got multiple people from my parish. Amy and her husband, Rob, also attend my parish, just like Charles and Kendra. So we got multiple people from St. Mary of Egypt here today. Thank you guys so much. And Amy, thank you for the generous support. God bless you and the family. Really appreciate it. And then Ray Nishnad Don throws in 349, says, modern new heresy, vortex prosperity. Yes, exactly. Very much the case. Very much the case. All right, let's keep going on with this remote viewer talking about what he saw, right? This has 149,000 views, by the way, people. Whatever you thought about Jesus, think again. Get ready for the most positive, uplifting, dramatic reinterpretation of Christian thought in over 2,000 years. Whoa! One based not on blind faith, like those people who call themselves Christians, but on new data, new research from the science of consciousness, where people go into their imagination and they just totally create shit up. That's what we're talking about. Understanding quantum physics. New and scientifically based replicable experimental data offer a revolutionary perspective into the facts of the crucifixion story. According to these new data, someone else was crucified instead of Jesus. Oh my gosh, did they read the Quran? Oh my gosh, that's what the Muslims believe. Moreover, Jesus willingly participated in the plan to dupe the authorities. This new revelation does not diminish Jesus or his message. Rather, it enhances and amplifies what we know of him. Whoa! Whoa! Oh my gosh, this revolutionary take is exactly what the Quran says. Wow! Wow!
I felt that the main target life is working with others as part of a team or a unit. So he was in charge, and there was this group of people working around him to achieve this goal. This all felt very reactionary in nature. and it felt like a very serious, almost work-like environment. Now, inside the mind of this target, I felt he was concerned and emotional, but I felt that this was suppressed by his need to lead and organize this group of people. Now, there was a situation involved here as well, and I felt that this situation was a surprise in some regards, but it was waited for and it was expected. The situation would affect many people. There is a worrying concern by those watching and waiting, and there's also hope. It feels like a global event or a big event that is going to occur, and it felt emotional for those waiting for it to happen. And there was also an element of surprise.
Thank you very much, Brady Harvey. You guys going to let these people out-grift me? What? If you don't send in super chats, Brady Harvey says he's going to remote view into y'all's bank accounts and give it to me. So, you know, just letting you know. I mean, right now we're listening to a remote viewer that went back to the crucifixion, is telling you that the Quran is correct, that Jesus really slipped away from the authorities and they put another man on the cross. Thank you very much, Brady. Thank you so much for the support, brother. You and Austin DeTulio, God bless you guys. Quran scientific miracles must be true. If the goal ain't hit, then the wine mom theologians win. Thank you guys so much. God bless you guys. I love you guys so much. The people who come here. Pablo Winskabar says, one more for the alien vortex Yeshua goal, 100,000 gigahertz. Yeah, if you're not vibrating at 100,000 gigahertz, you're gonna miss the vortex completely, guys. You won't even be in the vortex. You won't even be in the same neighborhood as the vortex. Okay? If you're just hovering about a measly, 600, 700 gigahertz, you're not even there. Do you not even listen to me? Do you not even listen to the channeled entities I'm telling you about? Can't let the wine moms win, guys.
Or surprise at something unexpected and what was going to happen. And I guess this might have something to do with the scale of it or the size of it, but I'm not 100% sure on that part. It also feels like a group was waiting for information to come in, which they would then respond to, and then they would make a big decision.
Well, as you can see, these data suggest that...
Well, as you can see from our man from the UK who did the remote viewing, Jesus wasn't on the cross. It was a very intense situation with a lot of emotional pressure. This conclusive and non-verifiable scientific method in which people get in altered states of consciousness and claim to transport toward previous historic periods is a revolutionary scientific procedure that we at Far Side YouTube channel are issuing for the very first time in human history. You'll never, ever hear this stuff again. Do you want to hear what our remote viewer has to say about Judas? No.
That would act to propel his intended message throughout humanity's evolution for the next 2 millennia. The crucifixion was a ruse, and Jesus fully participated in it. But questions remain. If Jesus was not crucified on the cross, then who was? And why would Jesus so thoroughly participate in such a ruse? What does this say about Jesus as a person and as an advanced being? Before we address these questions, let's find out more about the person who actually was crucified. Now we move to the final target of this project. For this target, the remote viewer is to locate and describe the person whom the authorities presumed to be Jesus when they arrested and killed him. The viewer is to locate this person at the time of his death. We have 2 goals with this target. First, we want to confirm that the person crucified was not the historical Jesus, who so charismatically led his followers. This allows us to obtain data that corroborates the data for the last target, target number 5. But second, We want to know more about the person who was crucified. Was he really profoundly deluded, as Seth suggests, so disturbed that today we might consider him mentally ill? Let's look at what the remote viewer found out.
Okay, guys, are you ready for this scientifically verifiable? Oh, wait, no, it's just subjective remote viewing. Oh, crap. Well, are you guys ready for the new theory that Jesus wasn't on the cross? No, we didn't read the Quran. No. We're not just adopting the Muslim myth. No, this is through remote viewing. Let me tell you about the scientific evidence that we found.
For this target, the remote viewer clearly finds a male target subject who is suffering. The location of the target subject is in a remote, rocky, and arid environment with a desolate landscape like a desert.
Can you imagine that? There's a desert in the Middle East. That's what our remote viewer just found. And you know what? We looked at the climate, the geological events of that historic period, and lo and behold, there was a desert there. That just verifies the remote viewing.
The target subject has retreated inside his mind, and he is not talking. He feels trapped, as if by accident. It is an unhealthy...
Austin Graham, exactly. Let's presume it wasn't Jesus, so when we tap into our imagination, we can confirm it wasn't Jesus. Exactly. It's exactly what they're doing right now.
An unhappy situation that makes him feel afraid. He feels abandoned, alone, and very exposed to the elements of nature. Then the viewer states that the target subject gives him the feeling of someone who is mentally ill. It is almost as if he has been brainwashed, and it somehow got him into an adventure that went terribly wrong. Moreover, he was purposefully chosen for this.
Our remote viewer tells us that MKUltra did not begin in the 1950s. In fact, the research regarding the Manchurian Candidate and the psychological programming individuals we found through our remote viewing occurred at the crucifixion of Christ, and that he, to lead his people, chose a mentally ill man who was conditioned to portray that he was Jesus of Nazareth to die on the cross. This is, according to their description, the new science and a revolutionary take on the crucifixion.
Let's now hear how Daz Smith himself describes his perceptions of this target and of the person who actually was nailed to the cross on that unhappy day.
It has land, which I feel is uneven and jagged. This feels peaked in places and hard. It feels very rough, very dry.
When I remote reviewed, I realized that they didn't have cement and paved roads. The land was jagged. It was dirt. It was so dirty that there was multiple different languages being spoken, and that it was so hot. It was very, very hot.
Yeah, and I get a sense of sand being involved as well, very gritty in the location. There's a lot of open space. There's a lot of skies as well. As I said, it's very natural. I can see a vast landscape around it, lots of unspoiled kind of, I'd say countryside, but unspoiled landscape would be the right word. And I had AOLs of Africa with this because it felt hot, dry, that kind of thing, foreign to me. Okay, and then there's a life form involved as per the targets. I felt the life form here was male again. He was quiet and he was reserved. I felt that this life wasn't talking.
I saw this man, and I realized that his favorite color was blue, and he didn't really speak a lot. He just sat there quietly. He was very reserved. He seemed like he was in deep reflection. And I thought, wow, what a tormented soul this man must be.
He feels very shut off, and I feel that this was done on purpose by him. I sense that he's emotionally...
Hey, Richie throws in 5, says, hi, I'm new here. Welcome, Richie. Glad that you're here, brother. Welcome. We are having a little bit of fun mocking people who believe in the alien savior myth and talking about different understandings of Christ. And we're ending right now on a man who claims to have remote viewed the crucifixion and is coming with new revolutionary details.
He retreated inside of his head or mind, and it feels like he's almost forced this solitude upon himself. This definitely feels like a life form that's hiding something, and he's not wanting to reveal it. And I had AOLs of being intimidated in this. Now, when I asked what was wrong, I just felt that the life form was very unhappy, and he feels trapped in a situation. It's an unhealthy situation, which is forcing him to become reserved and afraid. The life form is definitely retreated inside himself. He's very...
He said he's retreated in his mind like 5 times. It was a very unhealthy situation. I felt like he was from a lower class, and he wasn't able to get the latest iPod, and he just felt so discouraged by the wealth and the financial success of the individuals around him, and he just cowered away from stating his opinion.